Story 4. Mess of a Boss. Richard and Josie made it to the bus stop just in time. The bus pulled in and came to a stop. The two stood by the doors, waiting for them to open. But they didn't. "What's going on?" Richard called to the bus driver. "I can't get the doors to open," the bus driver called. He then turned to speak to the bus herself. "Come on, mate, what's the hold up for?" he asked. "Don't you recognise that man?" the bus snorted. The bus driver turned and looked closely at Richard. Then the penny dropped. "Oh," he murmured. He continued to look at Richard for a couple more seconds. Then he took his foot off the brake and the bus drove away. "Hey, where are you going?" Richard yelled. "Come back!" But the bus didn't. She continued through the town, went around the bend, and disappeared. "Why did they do that? Why did they do that?" Richard spluttered to Josie. Deep down, Josie knew. Half the island did not trust them after all. But she didn't want to tell Richard that. Instead, she tried to think of a new plan. "Look, why don't we at least try to get to Harwick? It's not far from here, right? Then one of the engines can take us home." Richard thought for a moment. Then he remembered something. "There used to be a railway here years ago," he explained. "When the line closed, they ripped up the rails and turned the track bed into a footpath. If we find that footpath, we'll reach Harwick in no time." "Oh, wow! Great!" Josie smiled. "Do you know where it is?" "Oh, I have no clue." After getting directions from a little old lady, and Richard being asked if he had fallen on hard times for the 12th time that day, Richard and Josie finally found the footpath. Unfortunately, it wasn't quite as short as Richard hoped it to be. The path was long, and the walk took a very long time. It just seemed to keep on going and going and going. There were 0 landmarks. It was just the path, and the endless countryside for miles around. However, after what felt like ages, they finally found something. It was a lone wooden bench placed next to the line side. Josie, Richard panted. "Can we stop here and rest for a moment?" Josie silently agreed. She was growing tired herself. The two sat down and took the scenery in all around them. The hills and fields stretched out as far as the eye could see. The chill November breeze blew, gently brushing against the long grass. There were no people out here, no railways, nothing. A twinge of guilt crawled down Richard's back. "To think I wanted to level out places like this, huh?" he thought aloud. Josie looked over to him, an eyebrow raised. "I don't know," Richard carried on. "I got so caught up imagining the profits that could be made, I never stopped to consider anything else. The countryside that would be destroyed, the people that would lose their homes, He turned and looked directly at Josie. "I'm sorry for everything. The stress I put you under with Project High Speed, the mess that followed afterwards, and even for today. You've done so much to help me. I mean, every bad thing that happened today, you got me out of it. And I tried to put the blame on you for this whole situation, but this was my fault. I should have never have gone out on a work night. You are an amazing assistant, and I'm just a mess of a boss. So, if you want to quit, I won't blame you, and I won't stop you." Josie was quite taken aback by this display of honesty. She thought for a moment, trying to think of a response. Well, then she smiled. "Well, I can't quit yet, can I? I have to get you home first," she chuckled, nudging him with her elbow. Richard smiled a little at this. "Come on," Josie said, standing up and beginning to walk away again. "Let's get going. And, Richard, thank you." Richard gave a small nod, and Josie began walking again up the lane. Richard turned to the bench, and then he noticed a small memorial plaque on it. It read, "Janet Odell, 1876 to 1949. The best controller a railway could ever ask for. Dedicated and loyal to the very end, this spot was her favourite part of the line. Why not stop and sit for a while?" Richard murmured thoughtfully. He knew very little about the Cronk and Harwick Railway's history, but seeing how much the railway loved their controller, that even after the line had long since closed, they still went through the effort of creating a memorial in her name, it was inspiring. Richard walked away from the bench, deep in thought. He had much to think about. At last, after what felt like ages, Richard and Josie finally reached Harwick. The two hurried through the town and headed for the station, finally relieved that this whole thing would soon be over. To their horror, however, Daisy was sitting at the platform, waiting for the guard to blow his whistle so she could begin her return trip to Knapford. The two knew they needed to be quick. They ran as fast as they could, down the road and up and over the footbridge. The guard was about to blow his whistle when, "Stop!" Richard called to the guard. The guard jumped and dropped his whistle out of his mouth, as he saw the man responsible for his paycheck hurtling down the footbridge, straight towards him. "Oh, hello, sir," Daisy called, trying to stifle a chuckle. "Daisy," Richard replied embarrassedly, as he opened one of her doors, and he and Josie hopped inside of the rail car. The guard recovered and blew his whistle, and Daisy headed out of the station. Finally, Richard and Josie were back to normality. "Tickets, please," the guard stuttered as he approached Richard and Josie. The two were sat next to each other in the middle of the rail car. They looked at him awkwardly, before looking at each other. Josie put her hand in her pocket and pulled out the £20 note Big Phoebes had given her. "Will this do?" she asked. Yeah," the guard replied, taking the note and placing it into his pocket. He then went about his work. "Tickets please, tickets please." "I could have gotten food with that," Josie sighed. "Oh well, at least we're finally on our way home." "Tell me about it," Richard sighed. "Once I'm back in the office, I'll get changed, and then I'll call my insurance to see if they'll cover for my lost keys. After that, though, I don't think I want to do anything for like a month." Here, Josie chuckled. "God, Casey is going to be fuming when I get back." "That's your partner, right?" Richard asked. "Yep, she's great," Josie replied. "With most people, I feel like I have to act a certain way, but with her, it's just so normal, you know? She's creative, she's confident, she's everything I wish I could be. I don't have many friends. I've lost touch with a lot of people over the years, but I've always got her, and she makes me happy. She's probably going to be annoyed, though, that I've been gone for so long and haven't contacted her." Richard winced a little. "Yeah, well, I'm sure she'll come around. Besides, you have quite the story to tell after all this." "Yeah, I mean, she never really holds a grudge, but I don't know." "I know what it's like to disappoint those that you care for," Richard sighed. "But the most important thing that you can do is just try to show that you care. Trust me, there's a lot of things I look back on and wish I could do differently." Things were starting to add up now. Josie thought it was best to not ask Richard for any more details, but she could tell whatever had gone down. It must have been rough. "Anyways," Richard spoke up, changing the subject. You never really gave me a proper answer earlier. Do you wish to hand in your resignation?" "Oh, wow. You really want me gone, huh?" "What? No! But he stopped when he saw the expression on her face. Richard rolled his eyes and smiled as the two chuckled together. Josie wasn't going anywhere. At last, Daisy rolled into Tidmouth. This was Richard's stop, while Josie would carry on to Knapford. "Right, I'll see you later, yeah?" Richard asked. "Yep, I should next be in the day after tomorrow, so I'll see you then." "Right, bye Josie, safe travels." "See you later." And Richard hopped off Daisy and headed for his office. The station master was very cross when Richard arrived. "Where have you been, sir?" he grumbled. "You should have been here hours ago. I've had to hold all of your calls and—" "Thanks, Fred. I'll take it from here," Richard replied. Can I have the spare key to my office, by the way?" "What happened to your own key?" the station master snorted. "I dunno." That evening, Josie got a bit of a surprise. There was a knock on her apartment door. Her and her partner wasn't expecting anybody, so she was curious. She answered it, only to see Richard at her doorstep. "Oh, sir, hi?" "Hey," Richard smiled. "I wanted to come by and see how you were doing. I would have called ahead, but I forgot to do it at the office, and I don't have a mobile, so, Is this weird?" I mean kinda, but I appreciate you caring." "How did things go with Casey when you got back?" Josie was surprised that he even remembered her name. "Oh, well, she was pretty annoyed when I got in, but we talked, and I think we're alright now. She's making dinner right now, so..." "Yo, babe, are you talking to..." A pale woman with short blonde hair emerged from the darkness behind Josie. "Casey, this is my friend Richard." "Oh, so you're the one sneaking off up north with my wife, eh?" Casey teased. I'm sorry." "That's cool. Just keep me in the loop next time." "There definitely isn't going to be a next time," Josie murmured. "Anyways, Richie, can I call you Richie? Richie, have you had your tea yet?" Well, no," Richard replied. "Great," Casey grinned. "I've just made 13 servings of the worst pasta I've ever tasted in my life, and I want it gone. You in? Richard was surprised by this. He made eye contact with Josie to make sure if it was alright. Josie opened the door wider to let him in, and so he stepped inside. The flat was nice, but it was also rather cramped. There were paintings and large canvases pretty much everywhere. Richard had to be careful to knock any of them over. "Sorry mate," Casey called to Richard. "I make paintings and sell them online and stuff." Richard was impressed. He carefully made his way through the hall and entered the living room. Taking a seat on the sofa, he looked around the room. Some show was playing on TV that Richard had never seen before. Even more paintings were in here, one still sitting atop its easel. It depicted a very sad looking and rather fat clown, with a big frown and red spiked up hair. In the corner of the room, a brown stripy fuzzy cat was laying on a beanbag. He stirred from his slumber and looked up at Richard. "That's Scoobit," Josie told Richard. "We aren't supposed to have animals in here, but we've had him since he was a kitten. He's a part of our family." "Hey little fellow," Richard cooed to the cat, but Scoobit wasn't interested in him. He grunted and went back to sleep. "Alright, fair enough," Richard chuckled. What's with the painting?" Josie looked over to see Richard was pointing to the one of the sad clown. She looked nervous for a second. "Well, that's just one of Casey's many paintings." I quite like it," Richard mused. "Has she sold this one yet?" I'm not sure." "Pasta time, people!" Casey boomed as she entered the room, holding 3 large bowls of pasta. She handed one out to Richard and Josie each, before throwing herself down onto the floor to eat her own. Richard eyed up the contents of his bowl. Inside was some sticky looking pasta in tomato sauce. There wasn't much sauce, mind you, 90% of it was just pasta. Still, Richard was polite and began to eat. Casey was right, it probably was the worst pasta he'd ever eaten, but after the day's events, it might as well have been Michelin star. Scoobit seemingly had taken an interest in Richard now. He jumped off his beanbag and sidled up over to see what Richard was scarfing. "Don't be an arsehole, Scoobit," Casey called to the cat, poking him with her foot. Scoobit grumbled and sat down. "Meow. I'll give you a little bit when I'm done," Richard whispered to the cat. The cat was content with this deal, and laid down near Richard's foot, patiently waiting for his scraps. Richard looked over to the TV show that the couple were watching. It was some sort of reality TV show. Some flamboyant and very sparkly man was dancing on a stage in front of a trio of very bored-looking judges. "What's this?" Richard asked Josie. "Sodor's Top Dancer," Josie told him. "You don't watch this one?" Casey gasped. "This is like the biggest thing on TV at the moment, mate." "I don't really watch TV," Richard admitted. "I never really get a chance to." "Boo," Casey teased. "Unbelievable," Josie smirked, shaking her head. "Am I being made fun of?" Richard thought to himself as he carried on watching. "He's pretty good," he said at last, once the glittering man had finished his routine. "I don't like him," Josie said shortly. "Well, why not?" Richard asked, surprised by her bluntness. "He's mean," Josie answered with great spite. "He thinks he's better than everyone else, and he's just so nasty to all of them." "He made a girl cry so badly she quit the show," Casey added with great malice. The 3 all watched as the judges proceeded to rate what they'd just seen. The man did not like his results at all. He began to kick off and create a scene. Richard could see why the couple did not like him now. He was quite pathetic. "Do you have any idea why I'm doing this? I'm doing this for my mother," the man hissed at the judges, who all couldn't seem to care less. "Great, now he's going to start trauma dumping about his sick mum," Josie groaned, rolling her eyes. Richard was so shocked, he let out a chuckle. He liked seeing this side of Josie. The 3 watched trash TV and ate bad food for the rest of the night. Richard ended up really enjoying himself. All too soon though, it came to an end, and he had to go home. "Thanks for having me," he smiled as he was about to leave. "I've had a great time." "You're free to come back around again if you want," Josie said with a smile. "Yeah, it's been cool having you here, Richie," Casey agreed. "Thanks for stopping by." "Meow," added Scoobit. "Oh, alright, sure. But, one last thing before I go. I wanted to ask about that painting," and he pointed to the one of the sad clown. Josie and Casey both looked worried. Had he finally noticed? "I was wondering if you had sold it yet. I'd rather like to buy it." The couple were relieved. He hadn't.